Ebenezer, remember when I was alive I robbed the widows and swindled the poor?
Yes, and all in the same day. Oh, you had class, Jacob.
Yup. No, I was wrong. And so as punishment, I'm forced to carry these heavy chains through eternity. Maybe even longer.
What is it about a good ghost story at Christmas? While spooky holiday stories date back to the 16th century, we had already been gathering around the fire on long, cold nights centuries before that. The winter solstice was a time when people believed the veil between the living and the dead grew thin, and so winter became the season of ghosts. Not to frighten necessarily, but to offer a reminder and a chance to reflect. No one understood this better than Charles Dickens, who took the old winter ghost story and turned it into a timeless moral journey. His novella, A Christmas Carol in Prose, being a ghost story of Christmas, or simply a Christmas Carol, was an instant hit. Debuting on December 19, 1843, it would sell out of its entire first printing, about 6,000 copies, by Christmas Eve, just 5 days after its release. Demand was so high that multiple reprints followed within weeks. It also did something rare. It didn't just succeed, it reshaped the holiday itself. From that day forward, there has been a name as synonymous with Christmas as the big man himself.
Scrooge.
A Scrooge! Uncle Scrooge! Ebenezer Scrooge!
Mr. Scrooge, even though he is odious and stingy.
Good morning, Mr. Scrooge.
Starting with the 1901 silent film Scrooge or Marley's Ghost, there have been hundreds of film and television adaptations through the years. And while we know the story well, we can't help but be drawn back to this tale of ruin and redemption year after year. We all have our favorites, but I'm going to wager a guess that just about everyone here holds at least a small place in their heart for Disney's 1983 animated short. This was Mickey's first animated short in 30 years. It had been so long that animators had to visit the Disney archives to study old drawings of Mickey so they could relearn how to animate the mouse that started it all. And while you would still find him on merchandise, at the theme parks, and occasionally on television, Disney had essentially put Mickey on the shelf for 30 years.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
So before we explore this brief but beautiful masterpiece, my name is Jay. That is a small but loaded team of animators who are about to carry Disney into their second golden age of animation. And this is Mickey's Christmas Carol. Mickey's Christmas Carol would begin life all the way back in the early 1970s, when Disney would produce, release, and then quickly discontinue a Disneyland record titled An Adaptation of Dickens' Christmas Carol. The album featured Mellow Men singer Bill Lee as Ebenezer Scrooge, as well as other Disney vets such as Pete Renaday and Jimmy McDonald. While there have been countless Disneyland records similar to this one, albums retelling the stories of classic literature, the problem here is with the jacket. It shows Disney characters playing the different roles in the story, leading you to believe you would hear those characters on the album. But that was not the case. I'm guessing Disney's idea was that you would use your imagination while listening to the record, pretending the voices you were hearing were those of the actual cartoon characters. But it would have been like watching Mickey and the Beanstalk with all the roles just played by regular dudes. Because a lot of money had already been spent on the artwork and the songs, Disney scrambled to find a way to salvage the album. Gary Crissell, who had been promoted to oversee the Disneyland Record label, called up his old friend Alan Young to ask for his assistance. "Do you know much about Charles Dickens?" Crissell had asked. Young, who belonged to a Canadian Dickens Society, most certainly did. So together with fellow actor and screenwriter Alan Dinehart, he would adapt the previous Dickens script for a new production, this time with actual Disney characters. Young even volunteered to record vocals for the album, lending his voice to Mickey Mouse, Merlin the Wizard, and Tiny Tim. But most importantly, this would be the first time Young would voice Scrooge McDuck, and far from the last. This time the album was a huge hit, selling tens of thousands of copies and becoming a holiday staple for many a Disney fan. Now, despite the record's success, it wouldn't be until the 1980s that someone would say, hey, we should make that into a movie. That man was Burny Mattinson. Burny had worked at the Disney Studios since 1953, starting in the mailroom before working his way into the animation department. He would be mentored by Eric Larson and do his first animation work as an in-betweener on Lady and the Tramp. He continued to work as an animator on a bevy of Disney films in the 1960s and 1970s, but his real passion was storyboarding. Storyboards are as close to direction as you can get. You're telling cameras where to go, what's happening on screen, where to cut, and really making a blueprint for the film. He would help storyboard films like The Rescuers, The Fox and the Hound, and The Black Cauldron. It was during the troubled production of The Black Cauldron, however, that Burny would grow frustrated with how far the studio was straying from the story. And trust me when I tell you that we will be hearing more from The Black Cauldron in the not-too-distant future. Burny's wife Sylvia, who was also a Disney animator, saw how unhappy he was and encouraged him to pitch his own project. He had always wanted to do a film starring Disney's Fab Five, and since he was already a fan of the Alan Young Christmas Carol album, he decided to bring the two together. Burny took it upon himself to storyboard his entire idea, showing how they could translate the record into the first Mickey Mouse short in 3 decades. Disney's head honcho at the time, Ron Miller, loved the idea, and it was put into production. Burny then began assembling a team of some of the studio's top up-and-comers. There was Glenn Keane, Mark Henn, Dale Baer, and Randy Cartwright, to name a few. Just a dynamite team. When it came time to cast the voice talent, there are 2 conflicting stories about how they landed on their Scrooge.
I guess about 5 years ago, my partner and I, Alan Dinehart, wrote a comedy version of the Dickens Christmas Carol for records. And I did most of the voices. Alan did some, my other partner Alan did some. And we thought that was the end of it. Until one day I heard somebody was auditioning for the voice of Scrooge McDuck. And he said, could you teach me how to do a Scottish accent? And I said, sure I will. And I picked up the script, and it was something I'd written. So I called up the studios, and I said, won't you audition me too? And they said, oh, would you like to do it? I said, certainly would. And that was that.
Upon hearing that Disney thought he wouldn't be interested, Young would also quip, I worked in television for 5 years with a talking horse. At this point in my career, nothing's beneath me. That talking horse, by the way, would be the one and only Mr. Ed, where Young starred as Wilbur Post on the classic television show.
Oh, morning, Wilbur.
Never mind that. I'm tired of you beating me to the morning paper. I like to read it with my eggs.
I like to read it with my hay.
As for the role of Scrooge, Burny Mattinson always chuckles and offers this alternative take. Alan loves telling stories, but he was always our first and only choice to play Scrooge. I think there was some discussion that he might be too expensive or that he was semi-retired, but he was always the #1 guy. The rest of the cast is just as legendary. In his final ever performance as Donald Duck, you had Clarence Ducky Nash, who had been providing the voice of our hot-tempered friend since 1934. This would also be the debut of Wayne Allwine as Mickey Mouse.
Huh? What? Merry Christmas, Mr. Scrooge!
He would be the 3rd voice of Mickey, taking over the role from Jimmy McDonald, who had, in turn, taken over the role from Walt himself. Incredibly, I have seen this short countless times, but this year was the first time it was brought to my attention that Minnie Mouse has no lines. There was, in fact, dialogue recorded for Minnie, and it was going to be the first time ever that Russi Taylor would lend her voice to Mickey's gal pal. But in the end, all of those lines wound up being cut from the film, and we wouldn't hear Taylor's voice until 1988's Totally Minnie, a role she would continue to play for the next 20 plus years. One of the absolute cutest Disney fun facts you will ever hear is that Wayne Allwine and Russi Taylor were married in 1991. That's right, Mickey and Minnie were married in real life. I can't tell you how much I love that. Now, I'm sure that you've noticed that there are a few cameos in this film, some of which make more sense than others. The list is pretty impressive, including some fairly deep dives into Disney's past. This scene alone features Mr. Toad, Lady Cluck from Robin Hood, the bird from the Isle of Naboombu in Bedknobs and Broomsticks, the kids from Robin Hood, Bongo and Lulu Bell from Fun and Fancy Free, as well as Horace Horsecollar and Clarabelle Cow. Speaking of Fun and Fancy Free, Disney would pull another larger-than-life character from that film, Willie the Giant, who starred in Mickey and the Beanstalk. And I think he's a solid choice for the Ghost of Christmas Present. Thankfully, they made the right choice to move on from a couple of characters who were featured on the original album. Jiminy Cricket would replace Merlin as the Ghost of Christmas Past, a solid choice given his similar role in Pinocchio. And thank goodness they ditched the evil witch from Snow White. I mean, honestly, that hag wouldn't lift a finger to help anyone, even as a ghost. Mickey's longtime nemesis Pete was a good fit for the role. He's just scary enough. But why some of these old characters and not others? Sure, it's fun to see some of your old Disney pals, but they weren't just there on a whim. I'm sure this won't come as a big surprise, but the reason Disney did this was to save money. Designing new characters is both costly and time-consuming, and since Mickey's Christmas Carol didn't have a huge budget, Burny and his team went back through Disney's library of existing characters to find those that would fit within the Dickens time period. This is the real reason why there are so many characters from Mr. Toad. They were from England, they were from the right time period, and they were already wearing the correct era-specific clothing. It's actually a pretty clever way to save time and money, while still giving the audience moments where they can say, hey, I recognize that character. Now, Burny Mattinson encouraged his team to watch previous film adaptations of A Christmas Carol, even setting up a screening room at the studio for viewings. But there was one film in particular that Burny wanted everyone to watch, and you'll find references to that film throughout Mickey's Christmas Carol. As surprising as it may seem, it was the 1970 musical Scrooge, starring Albert Finney, that Burny wanted fresh in everyone's mind. If you've never seen Scrooge, you have my permission to stop this video right now and go watch it, because it's fantastic. Featuring incredible sets, great performances, and some of the best Christmas songs you didn't even know you were missing, Scrooge is a must-watch for me every year. Also, Marley's ghost in Scrooge is played by none other than Alec Guinness, Sir Obi-Wan Kenobi himself. Let me know in the comments if you've seen Scrooge. Now a little bit of bad news. Originally shot in the Academy aspect ratio, just like all of the other Mickey Mouse shorts were, Mickey's Christmas Carol has since been cropped multiple times. After years of being featured on television, VHS, and Laserdisc in its original format, Disney would begin altering the film in the DVD era. It would first receive a partial change to widescreen, still leaving a bit of matting on the sides, but for the 30th anniversary DVD, Disney would crop off even more of the picture to remove those bars. Worst of all, it's the most severely cropped version of the film that lives on today in the Blu-ray and Disney Plus versions. Disney has also been criticized for using too much digital noise reduction on these HD versions, actually removing detail and causing the film to look flat. If you'd like to still watch the film in its original aspect ratio, there are two different DVDs that you'll want to look for. Either the 2005 Classic Holiday Stories release, or the 2009 Walt Disney Animation Collection Volume 7. I'm obviously a fan of this film and will still recommend it even if you have to watch it on Disney+, but you'd be surprised how much you're missing in those cropped versions. I can only hope that Disney will fix this mistake at some point in the future. We all have our favorite Scrooge, our favorite Bob Cratchit, even our favorite Tiny Tim. But it's rare to get a Christmas Carol where all three are truly beloved. And the fact that Disney was able to pull that off in just 25 minutes is truly astounding. When I set out to make this video, I honestly didn't expect to find much about the making of this animated short. But one little fun fact would lead to another, and suddenly I had more information than I knew what to do with. It certainly created even more appreciation for a film that I already look forward to watching every holiday season. I know I didn't touch on everything, so if there's anything you'd like to add, please don't hesitate to continue the story in the comments below. It's always appreciated. If you'd like to listen to the original 1975 Christmas Carol recording, or the 1982 update, they are both available on my other channel, Disney Recordland. I also have a large collection of additional Disney Christmas albums there, in case you're looking to enhance your holiday spirit. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. It means a lot, and it really does help the channel grow. So until next time, my name is Jay, wishing everyone a very happy holidays. Thanks for watching.